Thank you very much for coming. And thank you very much for being here on time. I apologize. I'm going to have to apologize for every one of these. I will never start a meeting on time. Terrible at starting on time. Apologies. I'd like to start off, please, with a couple of announcements. Firstly, we have a couple of members online. Thank you very much for joining us. Could I just remind you, please, to turn off your microphones and make sure your cameras are off. We are being live streamed, so make sure, please, that we are behaving appropriately. I'm probably not doing a very good job of it at the moment, but please, members, officers, make sure you're speaking into your microphones so that everybody can hear you both in the room and online. We're not expecting a fire alarm. Should the fire alarm sound, please exit the room and follow the exit signs to the nearest assembly point. Please ensure you address everybody by their full title. Councillor this. No first names if possible, please. I assume that all members, like me, have read the papers in advance of the committee meeting. Therefore, we should have all of our questions ready to go. But I'm sure that in the items being introduced, questions will arise. I'm very, very keen on follow-up questions as well. So have those at the ready. Cabinet members, officers, again, thank you very much for coming. I do ask that you keep your introductions ever so slightly brief, but keep us abreast of as much information as you think is important. Thank you. And individual discussions. I won't be able to hear anything if somebody's whispering at the back, and I will go into teacher mode. So keep side discussions to a minimum, please. Apologies, I've logged myself out. Excellent. Right. Welcome. I've already said that bit, but thank you very much. This is our first meeting. It's going to be first of a fair few. We've got 18 months less than now before vesting day. There's going to be short notice meetings for this committee. We're going to be adapting as we go. As we spoke about the other day, we're going to have to be agile in our approach. Sorry, Councillor, would you be able to use the microphone? Sorry, I can't quite hear you from here.
Sorry, how many months till vesting day?
That's a great question. I can do a quick maths, but vesting day being the 1st of April 2028.
Yeah, just for the purpose of veracity, because this is watched by the public.
Indeed.
Yeah, if we could just, sorry, Chair, just
Absolutely,
get our numbers
yes,
right. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Where was I? Indeed, yeah. Yes, so apologies. Short notice meetings. We're going to be meeting at short notice, and I do apologise. And I wanted to take that opportunity to thank my the substitute members who are here today as well at short notice. Very, very much appreciated. I've put on the board behind us before we start our terms of reference, the purpose of our committee, and you've probably seen this when getting hold of the agenda online. This is on the landing page of our committee. Apologies that some of our names are on the board. These are our 4 main tasks. These are our terms of reference. Everything we do needs to be within these 4. So I'm trying to hold these in our mind at all times. The main one, well, not the main, they're all very important, obviously, but I'm looking at that one, number 4 for today. I'd like all of our agenda items to come with some recommendations. I'm not a fan as a chair of just noting reports. I'd like us to come up with some sort of recommendations. We will be writing the recommendations as we go, and we've got a wonderful scrutiny team next to us who will be capturing the essence of our conversations. And if we do resolve to make recommendations, I'd like those to be written after the meeting with the essence of our conversations. Otherwise, we'll be here all day arguing over full stops and apostrophes. We need to make sure, as it says behind me, that scrutiny is constructive, evidence-based, and focused on securing the best possible outcomes for Devon. And that's its residents, communities, partners, and staff I've got here. And otherwise, I'll talk forever. Let's go straight onto the agenda, please. Item number 1, apologies for absence. Please, I've got apologies from Councillor Dempster, but Councillor Hopeley has very kindly substituted in. Thank you very much. Councillor Carston, apologies, and Councillor Biederman, but again, Councillor Keeble has very kindly substituted in. Hopefully our substitutes will do better than Thomas Tuchel's did the other day. Thank you. One laugh, that's what I'm after. Well, while not a member of the committee, we have a couple of members in attendance under Standing Order 25. Thank you very much for joining us, Councillors Bailey and Councillor Davis, and Councillor Stevens as well. Thank you very much for coming. Excellent. Any more apologies for absence? Wonderful. Thank you very much. Item number 2, declarations of interest. We spoke about this at our training meeting the other day. It'll be tricky to find declarations of interest, but if anything you think does pop up, it's always better to declare than not. If you've got anything you might consider a declaration of interest. Items requiring urgent attention. It seems that everything, sorry, agenda item 3, apologies. Agenda item 3, everything I think we'll be looking at is quite urgent. And you got the most recent supplementary agenda, I think, on Tuesday, the 28th this week. So I really do appreciate members, officers taking the time to read and prepare with such short notice. It's an evolving situation. It's evolving at speed. Agenda item number 4, public participation. We don't have anybody registered to speak, which brings me on to our first substantive agenda item of item 5. Would the cabinet member, Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak on this item? Would you like the lead officer to go first? Thank you.
First of all, Chair, apologies for being slightly late. Heavy rain outside, as you'll have noticed. And am I the right person to speak to that? I kind of saw my role here today as somebody who was going to be ferociously inquisited, if that's a verb. So I think possibly it's not my report to present, but happy to.
That is absolutely fine. We very much appreciate you being here. Thank you. Which leads me to hand over to the Deputy Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. I've taken that you've read the report. I think one word I would highlight to you is in recommendation B, and it follows really on more from what the Chair's just said. What we're looking at here are the merging implementation arrangements. They are changing as we speak almost, because this is a complex programme that we are participating in. One other thing I particularly would want to highlight is we do have a section on risk management, and I don't know for a future committee you'd want an explicit session on the risk management, or whether you'd want some form of training on what we're doing on that particular one. But those are probably my 2 comments I would open the paper with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was expecting you to go on, but that's excellent, succinct. Thank you very much. Members, start us off. Does anybody have any questions, please? I'd like to put to officers, cabinet members about the report. I'm seeing some hands starting to fly. That's excellent. We'll start off with Councillor Rake. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered if we could have a bit more detail on the current and envisaged scope and size of the single implementation team that's mentioned at 3.2. Where does that sit? How many people are involved and so forth, now and in the future?
Do you want to do one at a time?
Apologies, I didn't lay that out. We'll start off with one at a time as they come and go, and then we'll move to a different structure if needed. Thank you, Councillor Rake.
So paragraph 3.2 refers to a Devon team, which is in the process of being established. So at the moment, we don't know the exact numbers that are being in it that will come into that. But I think you can start to see from the diagram at 3.4, there are a number of themes, work streams developing, all of whom will require some form of project management, project officer support, as well as subject matter experts. So you can see that it will be a large programme once it is established, but numbers exactly at the moment we don't know.
I appreciate we might not have the exact numbers, but in terms of sort of orders of magnitude, do we have an idea of how many people we're thinking that DCC will commit to this and the various other councils?
At the moment, we don't know the exact numbers, but you're probably talking hundreds rather than tens, if that's an acceptable answer.
Thank you.
Orders of magnitude, very good. Thank you very much. I have a question from Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. One element that's not considered in the report, and I understand the Minister in his response on the 21st of July to local authorities included it, that is on the role of joint committees, the membership of joint committees, and who will determine who are who sits on the joint committees, because clearly from a member's point of view, that is where we are going to be more actively involved going forward. And I wonder if you can give us an update on the minister's statement on the 21st of July.
Who would like to go for that one?
Sorry, we're just conflabbing who's going to answer that one. The first thing I would say is we're somewhat in the interim of setting this up at the moment. So joint committees will want stood up from November time. We're starting the work on that now. But we're yet to determine how they're going to be pulled in. They will be made up of all of the local authorities. We know that. It's probably going to be the case that leaders will do exactly as any other joint committee and put people forward to sit on them. But I can't give you the mechanics because I don't know yet. We're literally in the process of setting them up and setting the governance up around that. And that's going to be the work of myself and Kerry, I think, over the next few weeks to get that up and running and agreed by all of the local authorities with an aim to us to be starting going live November. That's probably about as much as I can tell you at the moment.
Just, I think it would be helpful at an early stage because other authorities are giving us ideas of membership, who the chairs will be or cannot be, etc. And at some stage, I think we need to, as members, have an understanding of what the workload is when members are being considered, and a question of whether these are appointments made by council or by leaders, etc. needs to be clarified. Thank you.
Councillor Arnott, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the point, Councillor Mitchell. So this is a challenge because of, and I'm not going to grind an axe here, the complete catastrophic choices made by Labour about this for the people of Devon. But one of the consequences, the one I'll talk about now, is we will have to think hard about who sits on these committees. You're right. But, you know, you may welcome me sitting on the Exeter committee, and indeed, why not? And indeed, why not? It may be Councillor Mitchell may wish to sit on the, whatever we're now calling it, the Greater Devonshire Committee, you know. So that's an interesting point there, because at the moment we all work together for the common good of the people of Devon. We're not giving up on that. So I think that needs a bit of thought as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. I should have mentioned this a moment ago. If you'd like to ask a question, please catch the eye of my wonderful Vice Chair, Councillor Davis. She's keeping a list for me next to me. And on that, thank you very much.
It's assistant, I prefer.
Apologies. I'll write that down. I've got Councillor Stevens Neil for the question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm going to just do the financial risk. So I'm just going to read out 4 questions and I'll make the point why I'm bringing that up. So the first part is, what is the total estimate cost of the transition? Second is, the government funding sufficiently? How will any additional costs be funded? And ultimately, any overspend will fall on the taxpayers. And why I'm making this point is I'm concerned that if we don't have a clear picture of overall financial costs of the programme, Scrutiny, I'm asking Scrutiny should receive regular financial updates so members and residents can understand the true cost. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Do I have a volunteer?
Sorry, I didn't get your third question, Councillor Stevens. I got the first two and the last one, but I didn't manage.
Sorry, Councillor Stevens, your mic has turned itself off. Apologies. There we are.
Apologies. What is the total estimate cost of the transition? Thank you.
Okay, so again, we don't actually have that information at the moment. We know that there were costs within the business case that was submitted by Exeter and Plymouth. At the moment, the finances are being re-looked at and we'll have more of an idea of the cost of transition, hopefully in the autumn time. You asked about the finance from government. So for those of you, the government is giving 900,000 to each new unitary authority. Plus, there is also an additional sum of money of 150,000 for developing leadership across adults, children's and public health services. Is that sufficient, I think was the question you were kind of asking, or were you asking for the quantum?
Chair, may I just add? So what I've established is and this is what I know, is Exeter City Council estimates between 70 to 80 million pound. but nobody's considered that the transition from Devon, that will have a cost as well. So not only are we looking at £80,000, which is going to be loaned and has to be paid back, we need to understand how much to add for Devon's transition to go into Exeter. So we're running a bit of a false economy here because they're floating that up. And that's not at you, it's what we have to make public, that this could turn into a lot of money, which we haven't got.
So just for clarity, it's 80 million, not 80,000. And the business case the proposal, sorry, that was submitted by Exeter and Plymouth should have covered all the costs for the whole of a transition for the whole of Devon. So not just the costs for Exeter and Plymouth, but it should have included the transition costs for Torbay and for the remainder of Devon as well.
Thank you very much. Next on my list, I've got Councillor Riley with a question.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back to the joint committee's discussion previously, is there any scope for town or parish councillors to be involved on joint committees?
No, that is laid out in the legislations, and it's a no, not for the setup. No, so I think the involvement for towns and parishes comes later when we're looking at the neighbourhood committees in the new structures. But on the setup, no, and that's clearly laid out in legislation. Thank you.
Councillor Arnott, did you want to add to that?
Not to Neil's question, no, but I'm happy to come back to the other Neil.
Thank you very much. Councillor Riley, did you have a follow-up that you'd like, or you happy? Happy might be the wrong word, apologies. Thank you. I do have Councillor Arnott, you next on my list.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. So all the questions from Councillor Stevens are absolutely on the money. This is one of those moments in British history. I think it's, 50 years since anything as significant as this has happened in Devon. This is the most complicated disaggregation of services across these four, I don't know an adjective for them, non-viable new unitaries that's ever been attempted. The hell on earth over in East and West Surrey. This is so complicated. You've got Timbridge, which is being divided into 3, Devon into 2. You hardly know where to start to look at this. So what we've been encouraging the S151 officers in all of the Hounsett County and all of the districts is to get to the point as soon as possible where we can all have a piece of paper that says this is the true cost of this. Because all of that cost, apart from this very generous 900,000 plus 150,000 that won't touch the sides, will fall on the council taxpayers of Devon. It ain't coming from anywhere else. And that's something I have said before in public, Chair. I really welcome the new Prime Minister's initiatives on devolution. I think there's a real place for that to work for us. I think it was outrageous that the helpless Steve Reed, on the day before he was sacked, imposed this on us. And what I'm hoping is that somebody at number 10 Manchester, who seems to know a thing or two around local government and reorganisation, will look at this and go, we've got this the wrong way round. Now, it's perhaps a faint hope, but don't be surprised if in the coming weeks, when we are able to collate and verify the true costs, that it's not absolutely horrendous. 80, 90 million pounds that we're paying for the pleasure. And I think maybe this is the time to say, Chair, as you all know, I'm also the leader at East Devon. So I'm very aware that all the district councils, senior officers, are having to take the most inordinate amount of time doing this. And I'd also want to make a statement, Chair, in a way about this, which is having seen what all those senior officers are doing out in the districts and here, it's brilliant. It is public service dedication incarnate, and they shouldn't have to be doing a damn minute of that work at this point in history.
Thank you very much, Councillor Arnott. I will return to my list in just a moment. I've been sort of scribbling as we go about things that I'd like to see in our future meetings, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. As Meg mentioned a moment ago, risk management. I'd love, if possible, in our future meetings, that we have a report on where we're at in the risk. I've recently been given the risk register for DCC, or access to the DCC risk register, which is wonderful, and members have been given a masterclass on it, which is absolutely brilliant, and it suits me because it's color coded. But if we can have that report for LGR as a standing item on our agenda, or added to our work program, be wonderful. My next one is, as was mentioned by members a moment ago, implementation. It'd be excellent to see the implementation plan evolving as it goes. We've got that excellent pink diagram on page 3 of agenda item 5. It'd be, again, brilliant to see color coding of each of those areas, if possible, or general themes in those areas, how the implementation plan is going, how it's evolving. We're not the audit committee, so we don't need the real nitty gritty of the numbers, but it'd be fantastic to see where we're highlighting risk, where we're highlighting problems, where we're meeting stumbling blocks, or where we're excelling as well, because it'd be wonderful to see where we're steaming ahead. On my wish list, joint committees as well. It would be wonderful if we could have a regular update from the joint committees once established, how their work is going, anything that we can look at or they think we should look at, and we can invite them to come along. I'd like that as a standing item. And going to Councillor Stevens' point about cost, I'm picturing a big thermometer that slowly fills up over the next few years of how much it's costing us, how much it's costing our colleagues over in the districts, how much we have already racked up, maybe with a differently coloured line telling us how much we're expecting it to cost. But it'd be useful, I think, to this committee to see where those costs are coming from and how they're mounting. And then staffing movements as well, if possible, some sort of visualization of where staff are being redeployed. As the report says, there is inevitably going to be staff being moved around. Just talking to the handful of officers I've managed to talk to over the last few weeks, everybody is working incredible hours. And as Councillor Arnott points out, actually a credit to public service and credit to themselves and their organisations. I'm worried about our staff working themselves to death. So that staffing movements and the amount of money we're racking up on the toil bill would be useful as well, if possible. That's my wish list for the moment, and I'm sure there'll be more coming up in a moment. And apologies for talking for so long. Councillor Hayward, your question, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I ask my question, I suppose a word of caution. This council has an audit committee, you've alluded to it. And I think there is a risk that sometimes one scrutiny committee overreaches. The audit committee performs a function. It sees an awful amount of data, and it will consider, I'm sure, the risks of this. And I just wouldn't want two committees to be bumping up against each other, or perhaps making decisions that affect the other. So just a word of caution, perhaps some liaison between the officers and their chairs of the committees. In terms of your wish list moving forwards, my colleague here mentioned about the towns and parishes. Certainly as you progress, what is always forgotten, the government forgot, Devon often forgets, is that the towns and parishes keep the wheels turning. And if you're going to be doing your scrutiny function, and I know within your terms of reference, you can bring in reports, you can bring in speakers, you can summon people, then engage with DALC as much as you can, because they are the people who are going to be picking up the flack for all this and picking up the bills at a local precept level. So if we could add that to your list. My question is, the leader of this council has gone on record quite vocally saying about judicial reviews. And my question would be, this committee has the ability to call in decisions. I'd like an update on where we are on that, whether we've received council barrister advice on this, who's going to make that decision if it's made. Will it be cabinet? Will it be council? Will we get an insight into that? And if it is cabinet, reassurance that a meeting of this committee could be called very quickly, if need be, to call that decision in if we don't feel it's appropriate. And I'd like this committee to have all of that legal advice so we can see if it proceeds down that route. And obviously that's a big if, but we need to scrutinise decisions of that magnitude, and it shouldn't be down to one person or 10 people, because I don't believe their terms of reference allow them to make that decision for the people of Devon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hayward. And before I turn over to officers to answer, I completely agree with you about towns and parish councils and DALC, and the towns and parish councils that aren't part of DALC. You're absolutely right. They're the ones that we need to invite in. I would love it if we could invite all 400 parish councils in at the same time, but we might be here for a while. But I completely take your point. Thank you. On the judicial review, I'll hand over to our Director of Legal for that one, because I can't give you my personal answer. On Audit Committee, absolutely, we agree on that one. We can't be here to scrutinise the data. We're not here to look at the day-to-day running. We're not here to look at the operational stuff. Absolutely, as you say, we're here to look at red, amber, green, draw attention to strategic areas where things are either going well or not going well, going to plan or not going to plan. You're absolutely right. So thank you for highlighting it. Maria.
Thank you, Chair. So a decision hasn't yet been made. We're looking at a September cabinet to consider that. We're in the stage at the moment of collecting evidence, but a decision hasn't yet been made on whether or not to pursue any legal avenues. We're literally in the evidence gather stage. It will go to cabinet, and of course, if anything was called in, we would get very quickly to a hearing on that. Time frame wise, that works absolutely fine so far as jurisdictional issues, so that really wouldn't be a problem at all. If that gives you any assurance, Councillor Hayward.
Wonderful, thank you. Councillor Hayward, you have a follow-up if you'd like. I'll come back to you later if you have another one. Thank you very much. Next on my list, Councillor Bailey, Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm just mindful that the papers don't include the letter from the government of the 20th of July. And in that letter, I can't see it in the papers, maybe I've missed it, but hopefully not. There's reference to the Boundary Commission and consulting the Boundary Commission, and that's maybe a question that I'll take up in the next agenda item. But I wanted to ask you about the name of the new authorities, because the name seems to be called, of the rural, country and coastal rural authority, seems to be called by DCC officers as Devon Council. And I'd like to understand how that's come about, because I think there will be part of the submission from Devon County, but is that something that's been somehow agreed or discussed, or where has that come from, and how is that going to be taken forward? Because it's, all of us have an identity associated with Devon, and identities are a really, really important part of the process. So I'd like to ask about that, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bailey. And before I hand over to officers, the letter you referred to on the 20th of July, I asked the same question. It's official sensitive at the moment. So I don't think as a committee we've received it yet officially. And it's in that letter that you refer to, that the name Devon Council is stipulated as being the name going forward in the letter. But no, we as a committee have not yet received that letter. Maria.
That's quite right, Chair. So we did receive as officially sensitive, so we weren't able to publish and put that into the public domain. And you are exactly right on the name. So government have confirmed it as Devon, and that was following discussion with all of the 11 local authorities in the area. So that's why we've got to that position. But I accept that you won't have seen that publicly because we haven't been able to publish anything at the moment.
Thank you very much. Before I throw it back to your follow-up question, Councillor Bailey, the letter that we haven't received explains the process that they've decided that's the name, and they've said that we can apply to change it under the normal routes. So somebody who does live in Devon Council area, I'd like to apply for it to be Greater Devon. Did you have a follow-up at all? Thank you very much. Councillor Arnott, did you want to speak on that item?
Yes, and thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, and thank you to Councillor Bailey. So this is the fruit of the fact that within the body of the letter, you might be able to surmise that the Secretary of State, the ex-Secretary of State, has just, I'm going to go with a Labour one, okay? That's what I'll do, because that's the line of resistance, least resistance for me. In that was the imbecilic suggestion from Plymouth and Exeter that the rest of us can be called Devon, Rural and Coastal. And I've made this point before, just looking at East Devon, the last time I looked, Exmouth, Lympston, Ebford, going to the other side of the estuary as well, there are multiple serious coastal settlements that they've just, oh no, we'll have that in Exeter, that suits us. So the sheer arrogance of them putting forward that as a name was spellbinding. And I think there were initial kind of civil servant to civil servant conversations in the week or so after the letter was issued, and that came up. That came up as an issue. You can't call it Devon coastal and rural because it isn't. It doesn't include the whole coast. And yeah, so just to help with that.
Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. So I'm a bit confused. So coastal and country rejected, then somebody put forward Devon Council. Who's been consulted on the fact? Whose decision was it? Who put it forward? And who decided that 2/3 of Devon would be called Devon and the rest of it's going to be called other things? Because actually, the county still exists as a whole. So can somebody explain who put it forward, who decided, and why has this not been communicated?
I'm very, very glad you mentioned the word consultation, Councillor Bailey, because they have published the consultation results on the Gov website. Because as you're all aware, I'm sure, the government conducted a consultation before coming to this decision. In that consultation document, in every metric, the decision that's been taken, the proposal, ranked 4th out of 5 options in terms of popularity across members of the public, partner organisations, everything. It's 4th out of 5th. That consultation document doesn't mention anything to do with the name. Did it? Councillor Arnott.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Sorry to speak so much. I shouldn't really as a cabinet member, but I'd have, so thanks, Bailey, I'd have a problem with Devonshire if we were calling it Devonshire, which, God, that's a lot of us, isn't it? That's everything, including everything to do with, Sir Francis Drake and all the rest of it. It's not, it's Devon. It's got to be called something, and it seems the simplest solution at the moment. As to how that was made as a suggestion, it was put through the leadership or appropriate portfolio holder and chief exec and LGR representatives from each of the district councils as well and the county council. But we had to make a pretty quick decision because the letter has to go in around all this in response to the, I think it's, what's the date? Is it August the 12th? I can't remember. 17th of August. So there wasn't really an opportunity to do a popularity poll with everybody. But it is also not written in stone. I mean, there's a way of coming back if you've got a greater suggestion, like Greater Devon,
Thank you. I will have to drag us back to the report, unless you've got a very quick follow-up, Councillor Bailey.
Well, I just find it really odd that somehow a large part of the county is no longer part of Devon. I find that really odd, and I think it's going to create a lot of confusion that we've got a large area that's Devon, and then the rest of us who may not be in Devon, not in Devon. And I would have thought that would be a really important part of the discussions, and yet somehow it seems to have gone through without anybody or being put forward without anybody knowing about it, and that includes the councillors.
Absolutely, and that really does bring us back to the report. Thank you, because our future meetings and our work programme will involve talking about exactly these sort of things, how we have the democratic assent to do the things that DCC are doing in preparing. I welcome new Greater Cholmondeley personally, but I must bring us back to the content of the report. So, Councillor Wilson, you had a question? Oh, sorry, apologies, Councillor Wilson.
So the name could still change it, but the reason that they need to name each of the authorities at the moment is because they've got to be set up as legal entities. So they have to have a name to be able to set up things like bank accounts, to set up systems to put in place, but the name may well change. So legally, so far as for official documents and setup of the entities, they've got to have a name bank, which is why government have given us the name of Devon. Doesn't mean that name can't change, and that's actually put in the letter that that's still subject to. It could be subject to further renaming, further work. But they have to physically give each authority a name so you can set up and do the legals that need to happen around them. If I'm explaining that correctly, that's the imperative that sits around the timescales. Because you can't set something up if it isn't named, it hasn't got a legal entity.
The letter we haven't seen yet.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The Councillor for Greater Ilfracombe, Councillor Wilson. Apologies, I'm going to have to interrupt you one more time. Apologies. Councillor Pachowski, on finance.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor James Jaskowski, Cabinet Member for Finance. I just want to clarify, obviously the names were submitted as part of the SEO responses probably over a month ago. And actually our response to that for suggestion was actually Exeter and East Devon Council. That was rejected by government. So it's absolutely the government that has made this decision, not us within the council.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Third time lucky, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. It's just going back to risk. First of all, a point or a request or a suggestion. I couldn't find the most up-to-date risk register in SharePoint or online, and the one online had been updated for LGR in February. And from the report, it says there has been a more recent one. Can we have the most up-to-date risk register attached to our papers, and or have it accessible in SharePoint at all times, please? Because I feel like I was working off of old stuff. And just a couple of questions about the boards that are mentioned in around 8.5, I think. There's a reference to a tactical implementation board and that will monitor risk. Is that the same as the other implementation board that's mentioned elsewhere in the report? I just want to understand, is there one board, one tactical implementation board, which is the one that presumably has cabinet members, etc. in it?
Excellent, thank you. Maria.
So no, that's not one and the same. The tactical board referred to there is our internal board, made up of cabinet members and some key senior officers to look at what we internally need to do, what we need to risk, and the work that we need to do as the internal. So no, that we're not comparing apples with apples. The tactical is the internal mechanism in our control. And just as far as the risk registers, we were literally updating them as of yesterday's. So I think they should be on there very shortly, but I think more than happy that we do bring an updated copy to yourselves, and we'll regularly update that. But I know we were definitely updating as of yesterday because I did the election risks as of yesterday.
Thank you. On the risk register, I had to request access to the DCC risk register, but we've talked to them. Hopefully before the next meeting, we'll have an OGR specific dashboard, and then there's the risk register dashboard, which members can request access to. Excellent. And I'm getting nods, which I like. Meg?
We'll get that circulated to you once we know it's actually where it should be. As Maria was saying, it's being updated this week to reflect where we think we are internally.
Perfect. Thank you. Did you have a follow-up, Councillor?
Just practically, will we get an email link to it? Will it appear? How will we receive that information?
I'm getting nods. And yes.
Thank you. As part of setting up the Local Government Reorganisation Scrutiny Committee, I've had conversations with Brad Hutton, our Senior Assurance Manager here at the Council, specifically around the risk registers that this committee could receive, given that the other 3 scrutiny committees that we have here also receive a risk register. There will be a lens that this committee looks at risk through, the scrutiny lens, to not duplicate that of the audit committee. So following this meeting, I'll pick up with Brad around a training session for members around how to use the risk registers. I believe it's just moved to a Power BI dashboard report, and then how that can be used to inform your work programme moving forwards.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. Before we move on, my follow-up on the question about the tactical board, tactical group. Do we have a terms of reference for the tactical group? Wonderful.
Yes, we do.
Thank you very much. Is it possible to include it in a future report or circulate to the committee? It'd be lovely to just have a quick.
Yep, very happy to do that.
Very kind. Councillor Stevens, Neil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First of all, I just want to agree with Councillor Arnott. You know, this is politically motivated, but it's where we are. Over the last few months, I've learned a lot about SEND as a councillor. Right, I've been dealing with the officers on different cases. You know, each case, we've had a few bumps in the road, but each case is complex. Right, my biggest thing is service delivery. So my concern is maintaining frontline services, and we all can ask these questions throughout the transition. We all understand we've got SEND, we've got children's services, adult care, highways, public health. To just pick that up and shove it, divide it, is going to be a nightmare. And the residents won't judge us on the programme or the organisational charts. They don't care, right? They'll be judging us whether the services continue to work. And not one person in this room can guarantee it's going to work, right? But the public will suffer. The children will suffer, right? And I go back to what Councillor Arnott said. It is all political. And sadly, the public, the children, the adults in care will suffer. And that's not a statement from me. It's just logical. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Before I get the Cabinet member to respond, as you see in our terms of reference, our responsibility is to make sure that we're scrutinising DCC and ensuring that the council delivers a safe and legal situation on vesting day.
Thank you for guidance, Chair.
Completely agree with you. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Chair. You made that point rather better than I would, which is, that safe and legal, business as usual. So this council is completely committed, notwithstanding the budgetary challenges that will come to all those areas, to do them well until April 2028 and hand over a tidy ship. Now that may come at we've got the portfolio holder for finance here, that may come at a cost, and when we have to look at next year's budget, there may be some challenges in that, but the commitment to do that, there's no doubt. A really key thing to keep at the back of our minds is that we'll then have the shadow interim authority will sit, or authorities will sit from May, and what we need to be able to do is have them understand and accept, and this is critical, the legacy from the previous authorities, and I don't mean just the county by any means, but the districts, is a solid one, albeit that I fear in the coming months we may find that of those 4 unitaries, at least 2 are basically bust in revenue terms on day one, but we're going to get them off to the best possible start, and I think that will involve a hell of a lot of conversations between people. And I think that may be very helpful because there is a collegiate atmosphere at this council. I think there are across the districts as well. A lot of conversations happen between district leaders. But it will just fall on the quality of the communication we do with each other, which is why I'm so delighted that members have been kind enough to set up and join this committee. It is a critical role. And the point that was made earlier by Paul, by Councillor Hayward, don't tread on audit's toes, absolutely right. But actually, I think there is a role for you to watch out for, to enhance audit, actually, around a sort of special interest subject. And, if there's stuff that they have also gone, oh, maybe we might know a bit more about that. So it's a question, I think, for me, and I hesitate to ask you, Chair, to bring Councillor Buczowski on in any way, but I just think it might be useful for us to understand from the perspective of somebody who knows what they're talking about, when we may have a clearer financial picture of all of the various risks involved. But I don't want to put him on the spot, but I'm highly respectful of his insight on this.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor James Buczowski, Cabinet Member for Finance. So the intention is to bring to the September full council a report on the current year budget and how that may need to change in light of LGR. So that's the current year. Over the summer, currently at the moment, our finance team and our Section 151 is working with other 151s in the districts to understand all of the consequences of the decision that's been made, something we couldn't do until the decision was actually made. So there is a lot of work going on in the background, a lot of collaborative work going on in the background. But full council in September is when we intend to bring something forward for the current year. And obviously for future years, that will form part of the normal budgetary process.
Excellent, thank you. And I look forward to reading it on the agenda later in August for the full council meeting. Yes, I'm getting a yes from my left. Excellent. Councillor Stevens, did you have a follow-up?
No, thank you for that. Just take guidance. Am I allowed to ask more questions later on without hugging the floor?
Absolutely, yeah. Put your hand up and Councillor Davis will add you back to my list. Thank you very much. I wanted to bring us back just very quickly to what you were saying at the beginning, Councillor Stevens, about the new authority. It's item 2 on our terms of reference. It's safe and legal transition. We've got, get this right, 22 months and 3 days, because 2028 is a leap year, until vesting day. That's our bare baseline. That's our bare minimum, safe and legal. We want it to also be for good councils. Councillor Hayward, you're next on my list.
Thank you, Chair. It's really following on from Councillor Bailey's comments. I can see where Councillor Bailey's coming from. This is an upheaval of local government of a magnitude we've never seen. You know, most of us weren't. I mean, I was 6 when this current form of local government was created, and politics wasn't high on my agenda then. But I suppose it's the challenge that there are 60 members of this authority, and we don't want 50 of us just watching from the sidelines, because this committee could potentially just become a paper tiger. It just notes things that have been done. You can't change it because they've been submitted. We've submitted a name change. We've submitted this. We've submitted that, because a technical group, a strategic group, and the cabinet have gone, that's what we're going to do. And by the time we get to convene a meeting to go, actually, we don't really think that was a good idea, it's gone to government. Government's accepted it. They rubber stamped it. Well, that's what Devon wants. So that's the challenge. We're going to come on later to warding, and I think that is a particularly pertinent thing. But if you refer to the letter of the 20th that Councillor Bailey spoke about, I think, and this comes back also to what Councillor Arnold said, it just exposes the sheer arrogance and ineptitude of those making decisions in Westminster, because you, on the 20th of July, you issue a letter to the Chief Executive of this authority at a point when all the MPs have gone off to swan off and have their summer holidays. Most councils of this level, a lot of staff take their time off in August because that's the only time you can do it. Most lower tier councils, we take a lot of time off in August. 1, because it's sunny. 2, because our families would like to see us, and it's a quieter period. So to then have the arrogance to say we demand a response within 28 days by the 17th of August, and if you don't contribute, we'll presume you're not interested. So therefore you're compelled to do it. The ward, again, we'll come to warding in a moment, but it just, I think all of us share the exasperation that you're just doing it in the most cack-handed way possible. And actually, it's almost as if you thought, what's the worst way we can do it? That's how we're going to do it, because it just doesn't work. You know, decisions of these magnitudes, significant, shouldn't be done in 28 days. But we know that. So we've got to make the best of it. But I understand entirely where Councillor Bailey is coming from. The council, you know, between us collectively, 60 of us represent 600,000 plus people, if not more. And our constituents won't be very happy if we just go, well, 10 people and some officers made that decision. We've got to live with it. I think there needs to be more engagement. And if we need to call more meetings of the council and we all need to come to County Hall more often, then that's what we'll do. Easier for some people. You live in Exeter. It's less so for people, Councillor Wainwright and myself, and if you're in Tavistock and in Ilfracombe. But that's what we'll need to do, because that's our job. So I think there just needs to be a word of caution and an understanding by the senior group that this can't just be done in the name of, because it's too important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. And just a reminder to the committee, that 20th of July letter we have not received. So we really can't comment on it much more than that. But thank you. I completely agree with you. And you've put more flesh on the bones of my opening comments about us having to be agile. It's not because I want to call you out of bed to come and have these extra meetings. It's because we're being given unreasonable timeframes by government. And I must commend our senior officer team. The speed at which we're getting stuff is phenomenal. I'll leave that there. I must bring us back, please, to the recommendations of this agenda item before I go to my next question. Item B, obviously, item A is note the government's decision. I feel we have noted it and commented on it, but we are here to review the council's emerging implementation arrangements. So I want to wrap up this item relatively soon, and I've got some amazing recommendations appearing next to me based on our conversations, but I just wanted to bring the committee's attention back to agenda item and the recommendation, sorry, B. In that spirit, Councillor Hookway online, you had a question. The hand has disappeared. Oh, here we go. Excellent.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, in part, my question and my substance has been dealt with by Councillor Stevens and Councillor Arnott. I'm very interested in implementation and this question of business as usual, because this council is involved in many projects and work streams that take more than 2 years. how are we going to advise members and residents, for that matter, that certain items may not be concluded before this council hands over? So, for example, thinking about parking orders, if a parking order is started now, can we say to residents, well, yes, it is going to get finished before the council it moves on, or are we going to have to say, hold on, we're going to have to wait a couple of years before the new councils take their shape? And that type of guidance, I think, is going to be very important. And as a committee, we should be aware of some of these issues that may occur in this very short time frame. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hookway. Meg.
So it's a really valid point. Obviously, a number of the projects that we work on span many years, and some of them will have to continue into the new authorities. I'm particularly thinking of some of the infrastructure projects which are ongoing at the moment, where the completion date is clearly after the 1st of April. So those will be continuing. I do take the point about those projects which we will now need to consider almost on a case-by-case basis, particularly where the legal entity of the issuing authority may not be, well, cannot be the legal entity who actually finalises. So there is work there. The other item of work that will be emerging as we work out the numbers of people needed to be on this, which was raised earlier, is the issue of, do we need to backfill those posts, or do we need to stop the work that those people are doing? So that's something that we will be looking at over the coming months as well. And that is something which I think you've highlighted you'd want to see kind of coming back through this scrutiny committee anyway. But there will come a point where some of the BAU work, if it will be between different authorities, we may have to consider what we are going to do with that work.
Thank you very much. I'm going to just clarify, BAU, business as usual. Excellent. Sorry, I'm a acronym nerd. Apologies. Councillor Hookway, did you have a follow-up?
No, thank you. I think the fact that this issue has been raised and officers have acknowledged that it is on their mind, that's a good start. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much, both. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. You partly covered it in your summary before, because what's concerning me is we're having a wide-ranging debate on issues related to LGR. Some are in the report, some are not in the report. Others are in documents that some of us have seen, but other people aren't allowed to see, apparently. So it's slightly confusing football pitch that we're on at the moment. It's like playing the Argentinians. You don't know what's going to hit you next. What I'm concerned about is that we do take due note of what members have said on issues that aren't in the report and have been raised. And it would seem to me that there's an ability under recommendation A, if it was to note and comment on the government decision, that would allow the committee, if it wished, to express an overall view about LGR in Devon, whether they're supportive or whatever, and we'll cover the points about judicial review, etc. Because quite clearly the second one is all about implementation. And I'm concerned that the debate, the essence of the debate that members have raised, and particularly later on in regard to warding, and the same applies into that recommendation, that it's not going to capture the spirit of what has been discussed at the meeting, or the feeling of anger, I think, by some people in the room, not to share by all, but shows us extra people have to keep quiet. But the anger felt by many people about the way this has been done to Devon, I think is the best way of putting it, rather than it being a bottom-up process. It's been very much a top-down process, and I think that's exacerbated again by the letter that we haven't seen, which we haven't read, but very much the indication is that the minister has decided about us. But us, as Councillor Hayward concerned, weren't even aware of it or consulted ourselves. And some mysterious body in between has made determinations, and that comes back on the warding one later on. So I would hope that we can encapsulate note and comment, and under A, not necessarily make recommendations, but identify those issues that have been raised that might have been determined by the minister, but at least the public know they've not been done necessarily in our name, but done to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mitchell. Yes, I completely agree. we have to make sure we're laser focused on scrutinising the work of DCC. And as much as I would like to scrutinise the work of central government, I don't think they will read our comments, but note taken, absolutely. Before I move on to the next question, officers, cabinet members, nobody's looking at me. Excellent. Councillor Stevens, Neil.
Chair, this will be my last question. Okay, so I can't remember how many people work for DCC, but I know it's the largest employment in Devon. So this, what I'm looking at now, is the workforce and my concerns. I have family members who work for Devon County Council, so they have mortgages. You have mortgages. You have bills. You have commitments. You have children. So the question will come at the end. So staff uncertainty. I know there's rumblings going on because people are not sure what's going to go on. You know, recruitment, retention, loss of experienced officers, you know, is going to put additional pressures onto existing staff. You know, the question nobody can answer yet is how many will lose their jobs? How many will lose their jobs? And could I make a recommendation, Chair? Could we possibly have reports on the workforce capacity, you know, and staff retention? So if there's any problems, we can identify, because this is going to affect a lot of people. People will lose their jobs. They could, you know, the workforce is getting smaller. And you see why I'm asking this question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. We'll start with Maria C. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Chair. Completely understand you raising the concerns. I think we've been trying to work very closely with the communications team to share with staff as much as possible, as much as we know. So we're mixing that up in terms of doing full staff briefings or also directorate-based ones, because it's very different for different service areas. I think it's fair to say that when we did the modelling for Devon County Council's proposal, looking at our current turnover rate, which is around about 11%, actually you'd still need the same sort of numbers of staff. So I don't think necessarily, and I obviously can't make any commitments around redundancy, but the staff base isn't likely to change dramatically for the new proposals. All staff will TUPE into the new organisations. What they then become in terms of structures, obviously we can't comment on until shadow councils join. So our role at the moment is to try and reassure staff as much as possible. I'm the lead of the Devon-wide subject matter expert in the Devon-wide HR and workforce stream. We're looking at how we manage retention issues over the period. We're working closely with the communications lead to try and communicate as much as we know, also being clear about what we don't know. Staff have been very concerned about how it'll be allocated as to where and when they go. That's not something we can identify at this point. The TUPE arrangements will be decided by the shadow.
Sorry, Maria, apologies. TUPE.
So it's the legal process around transferring staff from one organisation to a new organisation.
Thank you.
So we've been honest about the unknowns in that. So very happy to bring reports around capacity and what we're doing in that to future meetings.
Thank you, and sorry for interrupting you. Maria.
Only if you wanted the legislation kind of unwinding, so transfer of undertakings, protection of employment, that's your regulation it comes from, but I think widely known as 2P.
Much easier to say.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Definitely.
Councillor Stevens, a follow-up.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. But it is concerning because people lack of information. So there's nothing you can do about it. But, you know, it's going to put that doubt in people's heads because they don't know. It's all uncertain, isn't it?
I think it's sharing with them what we can know or when we don't know and being honest about what we don't know. But I think trying to reassure as much as possible that when we looked at the modelling before, our natural turnover rates, and that's something we're sharing across the different councils, would potentially cover any of the reductions that we were looking at as part of the business cases. So that obviously needs to be worked out further, but trying to reassure staff as much as we can.
Thank you both. Before I go to Councillor Bailey's question, I've got Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Chair. It's very much want to support exactly what Maria has just said and to reassure Neil, Councillor Stevens, to a certain extent. This work, or the spirit of this work, this vein of work has been going on really since we knew that we were going to have to be doing it. So it's all, staff have already received a live narrative throughout the process from as soon as the new administration came in, you know, to pains, really. You know, they've been really, really communicated with. And I know that that's been happening at the district level as well. So people will worry at a time of change. But I think I would be reluctant to get a kind of, hair running, which was this is going to cause serious loss of employment in the county, because at the moment it doesn't look as if it is. And it looks as if, this is very colloquial terms, but it looks as if you wish to continue in a similar role to that which you do at the moment, the opportunity should be there with brackets coming underneath it. So where exactly then are these cost savings that the government is predicting if we're keeping exactly the same number of staff?
Thank you very much. And I think, Councillor Stevens, that really well underlines our role here. LGR Scrutiny, we're here to seek assurance that the plans are in place. We don't want to see the actual numbers. We're not here to audit it. We just want that assurance from our cabinet, from our senior officers, that these things are being considered. So thank you. Excellent question. Councillor Bailey, you have a question.
Thank you. Obviously, I don't sit on this committee, so I can't put forward recommendations, but I really hope that the committee will do more than note the government's decision. It's a deeply, deeply unpopular decision. It's not good for the residents. It's not good for the services, and it's not good for the staff of the council. And I hope that the committee will be expressing its dissatisfaction with what the government has done to Devon. And Councillor Mitchell is correct. There is anger in the room, certainly from me. I'm really angry with what's not with Devon County Council, but what with the government is imposing on Devon. So I hope that that's something that maybe the dissatisfaction can be expressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bailey. And Councillor Arnott.
Yeah, and indeed, Councillor, I look at my great friends, Councillor Haywood and Councillor Bailey. Look at the two of you. Just look at you. So, Jess, you're just used as a cash cow for Exeter in West Hill. That's all they've done. But they don't want Ottery, with which you shared a parish council until recently, because that comes with considerable adult and social care needs. So they just want the nice area with a big council tax. And even then, what does Exeter get up to? Is it 262,000 by doing all this? 264,000 people. And a question I've got, Chair, and I don't know the answer to this, who drew these maps? So he's basically, Mr. Reid, said, I accept the Labour solution. I'm going with the Labour solution. Who, in which room, took part from the Labour Party drawing this map? Well, it's quite clear they knew what they wanted to do for Plymouth, and it's all about, oh, is that big enough here? Oh, let's do it a bit more. Does that get us over 300,000? Yeah, it does. Right, let's stop there for a minute, okay? And Exeter, stretch, 264,000. Hello, is that the Secretary of State? Is that going to be enough? Well, I didn't say this, but I'm sure I can nod it through. Have you thought about what you're going to do with the rest of Devon, guys? And they will go, well, no, not really. I mean, what we can do with Torbay, I suppose, is just bung in a bit of Timbridge as well. That gets them up to the colossal total of 222,000. But what about the rest of Devon, Mr. Reid would have said? You know, how am I meant to draw a map for that? Apologies. They will have sent him this.
Apologies. I am being stabbed under the table by my scrutiny officers.
Yes, sorry. My name's Ben Elton. Good night. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Councillor Bailey, a follow-up at all? Thank you very much. We've been here just over an hour, so in a few minutes, we're going to take one more question and then we'll have a quick 10-minute comfort break. Absolutely. So I will take questions from Councillors Rake, Wainwright and Hopley, and then we'll take a quick comfort break. So Councillor Rake, your question, please.
Just briefly, and with respect, I recognise your desire to move this on. Councillor Arnott might want to consider the case of Schrodinger's parish, Little Hempston, which on some versions of the Exeter and Plymouth proposal was included in Torbay and in other versions wasn't. Its final state, like Schrodinger's cat, can only be known once we open the box. Picking up on some points that have been raised earlier, I mean, I completely share Councillor Stevens' concern about the the challenge in getting to safe and legal in adults and children's services, I think the best protection in doing that is making sure that we get the systems right, which is exactly the role of this committee. Because if we don't, then the management of that transition needs to be absolutely spot on given the timeframes. I also share his concern about the situation of our workforce and the workforce of the district councils, and indeed they haven't had much of a mention, but the existing unitaries, Plymouth and Torbay. I mean, it's a change for everybody. I think it's important, not least for the morale of our staff, that we also recognise that there's opportunity as well as threat. I mean, for those who get tupid to the Devon Council. That they have the opportunities to set something up from scratch in a completely new area, which for some of our excellent officers, I think would be a real exciting opportunity. And lastly, when it comes to Councillor Hayward's paper tiger, I think we can't be playing catch up on this all the time on this committee, and therefore I'd suggest that we have a sort of standing agenda item that has sight of the Programme Management Board's future work programme and identifies or asks that body to identify forthcoming decisions so that we can say, actually, we don't want this, like the name, like whatever it might be, being something that is just sort of because it has to be worked out quickly. But we need to have a role in identifying decisions that we think we can have a useful input, and we can only do that with transparency on that workflow.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Officers?
Certainly, once we've got the project management office established, we might be in a position to be able to kind of come up with that. It is in the early days though, we're in the process of establishing that. We're not there yet. Also, we need to be cautious in terms of the fact we're looking at how Devon County Council needs to feed into the Pan Devon programme as well, and we need to be sure that we're aligned with that. But yes, in principle.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the yes in principle. Get a bat signal for the LGR committee. Excellent. Councillor Rake, follow up at all?
No, I think that's. I mean, it's just as I'm glad that the importance of that is recognised, because otherwise we're wasting our time here.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We couldn't have that. Absolutely. Councillor Wainwright, your question, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm mindful of the importance of public communication. We've focused a lot on communication with other county councillors and within this committee, but as the local government reorganisation was actually sold to us all as a means of cost saving, and any county councillor here will be aware that it's a frequently voiced complaint that councils are wasting money. So I think it will be very important that this committee has a proactive and different language in terms of spilling out the progress that we're making in a form of words that both county councillors at their monthly parish council meetings and the general public can actually understand the complexity of the programme and that it may well compromise the delivery of services. So I think over and above what we've already discussed, we should be really mindful of keeping the public informed so that we can manage their expectations. It's already bad. It's going to get worse.
Thank you, Councillor Wainwright. Patrick.
Yeah, so we have developed a communications group with other local authorities, and we're in the process of launching a website, which we've all agreed on. That should be launched within the next 24 hours. So I'll share that link with members of this committee today.
Thank you.
Very kind. Thank you very much. Follow up at all, Councillor Wainwright? Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Hopley. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering what plans have been made regarding the disposal of assets, how that's going to be distributed, considering there might be assets disposed of quite quickly, which will belong to other unitary authorities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who would like to go on that one? We'll start with Councillor Arnott and then come across to Maria.
Well, I'll have a go and then Maria can correct me. But as my understanding is, the clock runs down in November. Is something like that? So whatever would have to be done in the next 3 months to be done. So I think that across Devon, the possibility of transfer of assets has passed. And that's the reason I come in first is because it's not a view that's welcomed by everybody. There are certainly some thriving towns and parishes who may have wished to take some assets on. My experience at looking at some of their cases is, do you really want to take on the swimming pool this year? Is this the right moment for you? And that it is probably best achieved by work done by our successor authority, for which the strategic interim committees will be sitting, next May. And I think that's where my suggestion would be that assets should be one of their absolute solid work streams.
Thank you, Chair. So the work streams are being set up in assets at the moment. It's all subject to agreement and negotiation. So far as assets that fall in an individual area, the usual process is that those assets go to that area. However, that's not a hard and set rule. So you could have depots that sit between borderlines where it's more sensible that actually that goes to a different area to still be able to service the local area. But the simple answer is there isn't any agreement yet. That's still subject to negotiation and agreeing, and there will be a separate assets group that will do exactly that work. That will cover all of the 11 councils. So that work's got to take place. There will also be, alongside the structural changes order, something called a section 24, which protects the assets. So that's actually about things can't be sold once that section 24 comes into place, and it protects it during that period. Councillor Arnott's quite right, we're not in that period just yet. We expect the structural change order to be coming Christmas onwards. It could be as late as January, February before we see that coming forward. But there will be agreement and work in between the 11 councils and then what's going to be the 4 new unitaries as to actually what assets sit in which area. I hope that kind of clarifies. So it's kind of, I can't answer, but there is a process to be followed. And as much as the hard and fast rule is certain assets sit into certain areas, there will be discussions to make sure that services can still be delivered.
Thank you. Councillor Hopley, your follow-up, and then Councillor Stephen will have a very, very quick question after.
No, okay, just to follow up on that. Will we be notified on that on a regular basis, or what's happening with that, please?
I think once the groups are up and running, there's no reason that we can't bring information here, so you see what's happening. Again, we're very early days at the moment, and I appreciate that's probably a little bit frustrating because we're not able to give you all the answers, but we just don't know ourselves. We're so early doors, but more than happy for us to do that.
Thank you very much. In as few words as possible.
Yeah, very few. And just a little bit more, because Devon County Council, fantastic building. What's going to happen? What about the vehicles, all the little assets, the tools? How's that all going to get divided up? Simple. Thank you, Chair.
I think we're straying to audit on that one, but you're absolutely right. Seeking assurance is a very broad stroke response.
And County Hall's been one that I've heard lots of talking about at the moment. I can't answer at the moment. We are literally gathering the information, gathering the data, doing the asset logs as to what belongs where, what we've actually got. And that happens for all of the authorities. So very good question, a question that lots of people are asking, but not one I can answer at the moment.
Thank you. And then Councillor Arnott, a final word.
Yeah, and briefly, thank you. And these are all superb lines of questioning. And, just because perhaps I sort of knowledge outside the room, this assets disposal part of it, rather than just assets, where are they going to go? That's a real challenge for the districts, because a number of the districts are going to have serious challenges keeping themselves financially sustainable through to April 28. Now, what you might consider doing, if you were one of them, is going, well, we've got this. We own? Well, we might own a cinema, for example. Well, should we? But it's a fire sale. So you kind of can't do it. It's not a wise thing to do. But I just want to let the committee know it's just another little bit of colour. It's another part of the jungle in which this thing that's meant to save money is actually got these terrible opportunity costs involved. And you know, through the chair, this committee should keep it'd be good if to keep an eye on that as well. And almost here, I think as part of what the S151s will come through with, hopefully in the next few months, what is the actual cost of this, is broaden that out a bit into kind of, the assets piece.
Thank you. And I just want to draw this agenda item to a close. It's clear to me that as pretty much every member of the committee has spoken and asked insightful questions, we are clearly hungry for the detail. And officers, I'm sure, along with our recommendations, our review of the recommendations, it's clear that detail is what we really like. And it's fantastic that we're all asking such insightful questions. I've said that twice. Thank you very much. When we come back in 10 minutes, I'd like to move us on to the next agenda item, please. 10 minutes takes us to 11:57. In your seats, please. Thank you very much. Agenda item properly. Apologies. When we get back, then we'll do the next agenda item. My fault. I was picturing my coffee. Sorry. See you in 10 minutes. Excellent. Thank you very much. I've been later, so well done. Thank you. Right, as Councillor Mitchell reminded me, before we close the agenda item, recommendations, the important bit. Thank you very much for that conversation. I will defer to my scrutiny officer on this one. Where would you like me to go from here? Where would you like to start?
Sorry, Chair, thank you. So your first recommendation was to note the government's decision for local government reorganisation in Plymouth, Devon, Plymouth and Torbay. You don't normally vote on noting a report, but I just wanted to make sure, just given what was raised in the meeting, if anybody had anything to say on that one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm seeing a hand from Councillor Mitchell.
As I mentioned in the questions and from the questions raised by members and non-members of the committee, that at the moment it just says note, which would just say we have noted the thing. But my view was that a large percentage of the debate and discussion that took place related to it, in particular the comments from the cabinet member. So I would like to amend that we note and comment upon the government's decision. I know you're saying it's not within the terms of reference, and I quite accept that, but at the same time, it will enable the committee Democratic Services to make some comment under that in regard to the debate that's taken place. Because my concern is otherwise, if we just note and comment, there will be nothing recorded about the questions made about overall viability, the names, the naming, the speed at which things have been done, the concept that we're being done to rather than being a part of a partnership arrangement. None of that should be recorded because technically we have just noted. And so therefore I would like to move that we note and comment upon the government's decision, and that will enable not a recommendation, because that is not the power, but it does enable Democratic Services to record the issues that were raised by members around this room and non-members. So I so move, and I hope there's a seconder.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Before we vote on the proposed amendment, I will need a second. I'm seeing a range of hands for that. Members, are there any questions or comments on the proposed amendment? Then, members, I'd like to vote then, please. Show of hands for amending the point A recommendation, just to include the words note and comment. Show of hands, please, to accept that recommendation. Thank you. And against? I like being on my own. And any abstentions? Thank you, Councillor Davis. Therefore, the recommendation now is, the substantive recommendation even, is note and comment. Members, a vote please by show of hands, those in support of recommendation A, to note and comment on the government's decision. Show of hands in support, please. And that's unanimous, unless I missed any abstentions or, no, excellent. Moving on to recommendation B. Review the Council's emerging implementation arrangements for local government reorganisation, including governance, risk management and transition planning to inform the committee's future work programme. The scrutiny officers have done an excellent job of capturing the conversation. The Vice Chair and I have been through the capture, and we feel that it is a good representation. We will circulate it with the committee at a later date. I don't think we need to scrutinise it line by line at this stage, but I feel it, and we feel it captures the essence of the conversation. Any questions on that before I put that one to a vote? Councillor Keeble. Oh, apologies, thought that was a hand. Glass off so you can hear me. Excellent. Councillor Rake.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, is it technologically possible to have sight of that?
It is, but I don't particularly want to set a precedent of us going through line by line what the scrutiny officers have been tapping away at, just because it won't be perfect at this stage. And if we vote and agree specific wording, I'd rather us vote and agree on that it has captured the conversation. But I'm happy to show it. But
I mean, well, I'd be happy to delegate the final decision on that to yourself and the Vice Chair, but I do feel as if we're being asked, just procedurally being asked to write a blank check.
Well, I appreciate your point, absolutely. I think Vice Chair and I are asking for your permission to approve it in general, but I'm very happy to show it to you. It's just I don't want it to be live edited, please, members. Does anybody need to be zoomed in any further to see it better? Excellent, everybody can see what they need to see. I'm not going to read it line by line, but I will give you a moment to read it.
Just to be clear, Chair, the recommendation was around informing the committee's future work programme. So through the discussion, these are the items that I picked up that you've all raised to inform your future work programme. If I have missed anything glaringly obvious, please let me know.
Councillor Davis.
Chairman, thank you. I think this is, I think, does capture everything. So thank you for that. One of the things I'd like to ask members, who I have spoken to the chairman, could the members of this committee only and our supporting officers and also the scrutiny staff stay around after the meeting? We have just one quick informal chat, please, because I think we need to talk about what training we want and what informal briefings that we might require, which will help smooth this committee in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, are there any questions, comments, changes on our recommendation? I'm not seeing any hands appearing. Councillor Mitchell, microphone if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Chair, the only thing that isn't covered there was about asset management and disposal.
Very good. Thank you very much. So I've got lots of notes being taken, so absolutely would have been captured later on. But that was one of the reasons why I didn't want us go through it line by line. But no, you're absolutely right. It is being thrown in there as we speak. Thank you. Wonderful. Right. As I said, there will be changes made to this because it's about getting the spirit of the conversation and getting through those points. I'm going to go for a vote on this now, please, that we will make small amendments to this. Those in favour, please, a show of hands to accept this recommendation. Unanimous? And that's unanimous, unless I've missed any abstentions or against. Wonderful. Thank you very much. That is the second and final recommendation. Just before I move on, have I missed anything on that agenda item this time? Wonderful. Let us move on, please, to agenda item 6, I believe. Warding arrangements submission. My lead officer I've got here is Maria. Would you like to introduce it to us? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, apologies that this report only followed the agenda this week. So I appreciate you haven't had it long. And that was just a result of the timing that we'd had notification from government. So again, we're just working at a very fast pace, which isn't ideal. I'll also just outline that the work going on at the moment around warding and elections is working between all 11 of the authorities. I am a part of that group, as is Karen Strahan and team, just to feed into the elections and the warding arrangements. But the group is very much made up of districts and all of their elections teams. So they have an excellent elections teams who would usually help deliver our election. So we're confident in the work that's coming out of them. What I would say is a task that we've been asked to do in weeks is something that I would normally be expected to do over a much longer period of time. Just drawing your attention to the report itself. So legislative and procedural backgrounds in paragraph 2.2 to 2.8. So that's pages 1 to 3. Benchmarking information for other local government reorganisations, which may be of interest to you, are paragraphs 2.9 to 213 and they're pages 3 to 5. Matters which the committee is invited to provide views on, paragraphs 3.2 to 3.4, and that's pages 6 to 7. And then we've got legal considerations, just 8 to 9, and risk management considerations, which again you'll be interested in, pages 10 to 11. Given the government's timetable and the fact that detailed boundary modelling is still being developed, literally as we're speaking, I think they're still working on it, members should be aware that today's discussion is necessarily focused on the framework, principles and strategic implications rather than the detailed mechanics of the individual bounds and boundaries. Individual ward boundaries. Tired today. The committee's recommendations will assist Cabinet in determining the Council's formal response to government by the 17th of August and ensuring that Council's approach is robust, proportionate and consistent with the objectives. The aim is for us to deliver a safe and effective local government transition. And just on timelines, boundaries will be going to Cabinet on the 10th of August, and the aim is to give an all-member briefing and provide all members, it'll be an online briefing on the morning of the 10th, just to tell you where we've got to date. So again, all members are at least aware of the work that has happened and the mechanics and the procedures around that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And before I throw it out to members for questions, I just have a couple of points, if that's okay. The first one, we need to, as a committee, resist the urge to go parochial on this one. It's going to be tricky. This committee is politically balanced, which is excellent. It's not geographically balanced. We don't have representations from all four corners of the county of Devon. And we are, as I've said before, we are here to scrutinise how Devon County Council is preparing for the changes. And as much as I would love to talk about individual tiny and possibly significant boundary changes, we need to make sure we're focusing on our terms of reference. My second point is a direct question, if that's okay. And I know the answer to it, which is unfortunate, sorry. From 2.2 to 2.8, this information is gratefully received, thank you. 2.4 specifically, the councillor numbers, where has that information come from?
So that information has come directly from government, and that is what we've been told to work to. So it's been drawn from the business cases that have been successful. It's not something that we've put forward. It is what government has told us we have got to work to and work with.
And specifically, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, please, is that's in the letter that we have not received.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Just wanted to draw attention to that. Very kind. I will throw it over to councillors. Any questions, please? I've had one hand, two hands, three hands so far, but we'll start. Councillor Hayward, your question, please.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose in the letter we haven't seen, and in all the proposals, what's very helpful is that all this data is already here. You can just, if you're Excel minded, you can just lump it into one spreadsheet, and immediately the inequity of what's being proposed is evident. I mean, taking roads, which for Devon is particularly important, each councillor in the new Devon Authority will have 107 kilometres of road to deal with. In Exeter, it'll be 27. Each councillor in Devon will have 53 square kilometres to manage and deal with. In Exeter, it'll be 7. The residents, obviously, that's where it changes. 430 for Exeter, 83 if you're in Devon. But so what you can do with this data wonderfully is you can actually then extrapolate it and chop it down. And you do end up with actually some quite radical changes that Devon really should have. If we're doing it just on electorate, which seems to be the core metric, the new Devon Authority should have 107. Plymouth actually should have one extra, should go to 69. Exeter should plummet from 86 to 53, because then it's equitable. Each councillor across the whole of the peninsula deals with the same number of electorate. And actually in Exeter it'd be a lot easier, because you could have your 3,340 electorate in a couple of streets and a tower block. If you're in Axminster, that's a 50 square mile radius, probably more for some of our northern Devon colleagues. And I noticed within the thing that there needs to be some sort of almost unanimous agreement. It can't just be one authority going, yep, that works for us and the others don't. So I think this committee can put forward some arguments and say, that doesn't work. That's not fair. Fair is a bit of a childish word, but it isn't. It's not equitable. And therefore, if you're going to do this and prove that it's not a political gerrymandering exercise, then you look at the number of councillors needed, and the facts speak for themselves. But even when you get down to that reapportioning, it's still biased against those councillors. I was in a meeting yesterday with a member of the public and the public are actually quite well versed in this. Some give the opinion, oh, it's whatever, council this, council that, council. A lot of people are genned up on this and are following it closely and do expect us to fight their corner for them for the services that Councillor Stevens mentioned earlier. Yesterday, they noticed that it's no longer coast and countryside. Surf and turf seems to be the phrase that's doing the rounds at the moment. But yeah, iniquitous, I think, is the how it's currently being put in the letter we haven't seen. So I think this committee can make recommendations and can make suggestions and just push it back and say, no, you need to think about these numbers again. The issue of where potentially that this new authority is based, that will come at a later time, because I think everyone understands the weirdness of, if you've retained County Hall, you'd have to come to work in an area that's not under your council's control, and whether the new Devon Council actually just builds a barricade around Exeter and says, "We'll try and get to it then. There's a charge, there's a toll." You know, who knows? We're being in charge of highways. We can do what we want. That might work for Councillor James. You know, that will raise some money. Don't let them in or don't let them out. Obviously, I need to declare an interest because my kids are in Exeter now, so they'd have to pay to come and see me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. You've illustrated an excellent point as well. Our recommendation at the moment that we're considering, and before I turn over to officers and cabinet members for a response, as you notice on the beginning of the agenda item, our recommendation is that we're to consider the information set out in the report. Now, this is our only source of information because we haven't received the letter. We are here to make recommendations to cabinet. Cabinet are meeting on the 10th, but please correct me if I'm wrong. By the 10th of August, the cabinet will have already reached local agreement, I think is a quote, with the district councils and all the councils affected by these changes on warding arrangements. And by the 10th, those submissions will have already been made before the deadline of the 16th. So our recommendations to cabinet.
I think
I'm being corrected. Here we go, Maria.
Chair, so the attempt is to try and agree warding agreement arrangements before the 10th to present to cabinet, but it is an attempt at the moment. I can't emphasise enough the task that has been put to our elections managers and teams to try and pull this together. So the attempt, yes, is to try and do that so that we're ready to submit following cabinet on the 17th to submit to government on that. And government has asked us to try and agree as an area. So that's what we're attempting to do.
Thank you. Just to really clarify, in terms of decision making, there is, if you wouldn't mind just outlining for the committee, there is a group of district councils and county councils and unitary authorities that are meeting to reach a local agreement, and that will be submitted. But our cabinet is only a small part of that group.
So the group is made up of all of the 11 councils, and that is chief execs and leaders of all 11 councils, along with senior officers and specialist advisors. Elections is a group that sits inside that, but it sits distinct and on its own. It has representatives from all of the areas, along with all of the elections managers, myself, Karen Strahan, and members of the team. So it's all of the specialist knowledge in one place, effectively. They're doing the work to try and put the warding arrangements in line with what we've been asked to do on the current 4 structures that we've been provided with.
Thank you. So our recommendations that we may or may not make today will go to cabinet, and then cabinet can make those recommendations to the submission group.
They will make those recommendations, and it will make its way into the letter that will go on the 17th to government.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm sorry to be pedantic. I thought it was important for the committee to really outline that one. Excellent. The next name on my list for a question is Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at 2.4, we're given numbers that I think were in the secret letter we haven't seen, but we've got the numbers for the new unitary authorities. Those differ from those put in by people making bids. For example, in the case of Exeter, the winning bid, point out that their initial offer was 72 for Exeter unitary. That's now gone to 86. In the case of, and having been a part of that body that submitted, for the other councils, they felt it was wrong for them to determine an actual number, so they gave a range. So in the case of Plymouth, they thought 60 to 72, and it came out at 68. So that's not too bad. They weren't far off there. Torbay, 44 to 54. They've come out at 64 plus 10. And for Devon, they went between 70 and 100, because at that stage, central government's view was 100 should be the maximum. Although we know in the case of both Cornwall and I think Somerset, they went above and were then brought back on boundary reviews, comes out at 103. Have we got a rationale for knowing why the government increased the Exeter UA by 14 and the Torbay UA by 10? Is it anything to do with this theory we're hearing that non-parished areas within the new UAs should have a lower ratio of electorate to members than parished areas which have got a lower tier of council below them, and therefore to support the work? Because I'm intrigued to know why both Torbay, where you've got Torquay and Paynton that haven't got parish councils, where Brixham has, and in the case of Exeter, there is no parish council, or no continuing council at present. I wonder if that's an explanation. So if you be grateful for any advice on that one. Do you want me to stop at that stage? And
I'll just jump in here before you answer. Absolutely, and I'll come back with a follow-up. Just
Yeah.
for those keeping score at home, UA,
Sorry,
UA as an acronym.
unitary authority.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Maria.
Not a
Very
football
short
team.
answer. No, we haven't been given any rationale. We've just been provided with the numbers and told that they're numbers that we need to work to.
So therefore, the intent would be that in the case of Torbay and in the case of Exeter, where they've got increased numbers beyond what was considered at the beginning, those will be evenly spread, presumably, across the unitary. They aren't concentrated in geographically in non-parish areas. That's not correct. In regard, and I do welcome the view that this matter is coming to Cabinet and there's an all members briefing, so at least we'll be all aware. As you pointed out, we could end up with 4 or 5 different bids being put into government on the ones if there's no agreement across authorities. And quite clearly, some lead authorities will be more concerned about their own patch geographically than other patches within the area. Do you know whether the district councils have any intent to consult their members on their bids before they go in? Because I'm very welcome what is being done here with Cabinet and members briefing. I can only speak from my own authority. I'm unaware of anything happening there, and I don't know others on other authorities like East Devon, for example, whether they intend to carry out a similar performance, because clearly it impacts district councillors as well as county councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Can't answer what's happening in other authorities, so I can only tell you what we're doing in ours at the moment. Apologies.
So in fact, it's not built into any agreement that each authority will consult its members before putting a bid in.
Very much up to your individual authority, how they work with their members.
On that point, just before we move on to the next question, my understanding is that Cabinet meeting on the 10th, but on the same day, we're as members receiving a briefing on our submission to the conversation. If you wouldn't mind just expanding.
So yes, the intention is to do an online briefing with all members on the 10th prior to Cabinet, and that will deal with the work that's happened so far on the warding and also just on the wider programme on where we are with LGR so far. Probably won't be much more than what you've got here on the implementation plan. I expect it to be fairly short, but that's happening with all members on the 10th, just so you all know where we are and what we've done so far.
Wonderful, thank you. And then after we've had the briefing on the 10th, Cabinet met on the 10th. The submission is on the 16th, and then 16th, 17th, around that time.
17th.
Obviously, we as a committee don't have time to meet in that time at all, and by the time we meet again, that will have been submitted.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Could I just ask one small follow-up point?
Of course you can, Councillor Mitchell.
Within the boundary regulations are either using district or county, or it could be a combination in some areas of both. And quite clearly with the numbers involved, this could involve multi-member wards or divisions. I don't know what they're going to be called, wards or divisions. Unitary authority boxes, going to be multi-member wards. While some of us are used in, particularly in city areas, to 3-member multi-member wards, is there a limit on the number of multi-members you could have in a multi-member ward?
I would have to revert back to you on that. So I'm used to 3. I haven't really seen much more than 3. I would have to revert back to Councillor Mitchell on that point. Again, you've given me, yes, you've given me an answer I can't, a question I can't answer. It is something that that the electoral managers at the moment are working really hard to try and avoid multi-member wards wherever possible. It might not be possible in the timescales to be able to do that. We have been told, as you said, Councillor Mitchell, to work to parish, district or county boundaries and working within those. And that's exactly what they're doing to try and avoid it. Appreciating, I think, again, as Councillor Hayward said, the size of the areas, some of the travel distances are huge, particularly for Devon. So that's the work that's really, really taking place at the moment. Do I think we'll get it perfect this time round? Probably not. There will be a boundary review that will happen at the first election after the new authorities are formed. So that's going to be in 5 years' time. That's historically what we see with every other unitary situation, and they will play around with the numbers and the boundaries then. We are not going to have the timescales to get this completely perfect, is what I would say.
Thank you very much. By my maths, if we stick to pure county boundaries, it would need to go to the 4 members per division. So I'm sure there'll be changes made in the recommendation. Thank you very much. Councillor Rake is next on my list.
Thank you, Chair. I think one answer to Councillor Mitchell's question about the rationale for the changes since is that the Exeter and Plymouth proposal was completely half-baked or incompletely half-baked, and they just hadn't done the work properly. And so the government, to that extent, is possibly clearing up after them. I'd also ask that in future on this committee, we don't refer to these things as bids. They're proposals rather than bids. And I think that the 5 proposals on the shape of LGR were proposals and not bids. I think it's a minor point, but it's a hill I'm prepared to die on. But turning to the question of warding, I think there's a big danger of creating a democratic deficit, in particularly with regards to the existing unitaries and their annexed areas. I've heard pronouncements from Plymouth and Torbay suggesting that, oh, well, we'll keep our existing council wards and we'll give you X number to. And I think we really need to, moving forward, and as we look at these things, have that at the forefront of our minds, because it is the path of least resistance, I suppose, to approach it in that way. And we are, as ever, working to a very tight time frame, but just tacking on the absorbed areas could create a significant democratic deficit with a difference in either direction. Incidentally, I mean, it could mean that the 13 parishes from the South Hams that are being absorbed into Plymouth could be overrepresented or underrepresented compared to the datum. You know, obviously not every ward has exactly the same number of inhabitants, but I think, and the particular danger there, notwithstanding the boundary review, is that these things get baked in, and it would be baked in because these are the councils that are going to shape the council of the future. And if there is if warding creates that skew and that bias, then that will not be solved simply by a boundary review for the next round of elections. So I think we could usefully, as a committee, draw, I'm sure it's already been taken account of, but draw attention to that and recommend that it is a particular area of focus.
Thank you very much. And before I throw it to Councillor Arnott, absolutely, it's going to be included in our recommendations that it's considered, because by my mind as well, if we look at pages 4 and 5 of the agenda item, the benchmarking, we are off those numbers for most of these. I nearly said bids there. The proposal in front of us, the benchmarking and our councillor to electorate ratios don't add up. Absolutely. Thank you. Any apologies. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to come in on this item, but just wanted to thank and hope that the contributions can be included when you come to sum up from both Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Haywood, Councillor Rake as well. But in practical terms, what Councillor Mitchell has flushed out is that the new Exeter one, I don't know, are they going to be parish councils? I don't think there's a serious plan to do it. So therefore, those people elected in those areas, with even fewer people they have to look after, won't have any interaction with their local populaces, and those councillors elected will have that massive extra burden of in the Devon one, of still having all these parish reports and things you have to turn up to. And I mentioned this to a Labour leader, and he said, "Oh, parish councils, you know, it's just Vicar of Dibley, isn't it?" And I said, "A parish Vicar of Dibley is a parochial church council. Okay? Parish councils are something different. They don't get that in Exeter. Just don't get it. Don't understand it. Not part of their lived experience, as we say these days." As far as Councillor Haywood is concerned, I'd love it if he turned up to cabinet, because he's a demon on the spreadsheet. That's brilliant, and that needs to be heard by cabinet. What you said about, yeah, no, thank you. I mean, that's in fact that's exactly it. So yeah, just to say thanks on those.
Thank you very much, and I'm ensure that it's in our recommendations that we are worried as a committee about democratic representation of currently unparished areas, as most people in the county of Devon will have 2 layers of government, a parish council and the new unitary authority above them. However, there will be some areas that will only have 1. So message received on that one. Thank you very much.
Could I just clarify? That is what I've heard. I've not seen that in writing or confirmed by an officer that that is a part of the formula. So, let's not take that as
You're
New
absolutely
Testament.
right.
This is something I've heard as a proposal that there's a distinction between parished and non-parished areas. And I don't know whether the officers can confirm that or not, but that is just a rumour we've heard.
I take your point completely. We're not discussing whether it is or isn't going to happen. I completely agree. But we are worried as a committee. I'm getting nods around the room that there is currently nothing laid out in front of us. It might be in the secret letter that of plans to make up that shortfall. Excellent. Thank you. Next on my list, Councillor Raleigh.
Thank you, Chair. My concerns regarding warding and democracy have been addressed by Councillor Rake, Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Hayward. I do, however, still hold a slight concern that how can it be right that we as a scrutiny committee have to scrutinise these issues by August the 10th and ensure that we are happy with what we've done.
Thank you, Councillor. Would any officers, cabinet members like to answer on that one? I'm seeing lots of blank faces across the room. It's a good hanging question, though. Councillor Arnott.
It's a difficult one for officers to answer because it's, there's lines beyond which they can't go, which probably I'm more free on. We're running out of road. It's simple as that. It's August and it would be incredibly hard having cabinet. So there's not meant to be a cabinet in August. The leader would prefer to be bobbing around in the Aegean somewhere, but we're having it August 1 and that's as early as it could be organised. And it's only, 4 working days between that and the date of submission. So it's as the young people say, it's suboptimal. I agree, but I'm afraid another cliche, we are where we are.
Thank you. A follow-up question at all, Councillor Raleigh?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, slightly worried that running out of time is sort of being put aside, which could lead us to just saying, oh yeah, okay, just to get within the time frame. There's no way the date could be postponed for 2 weeks to allow more in-depth look into the issues around warding.
On this one, the government has set the deadline with absolutely no recourse. I'm getting nods from my left here. As with most things on this, and we are here to scrutinise DCC, not the government, but they have told us when the deadline is, and there is no comeback. Maria.
And the reasons behind that is because we're heading towards an election in May of next year. Warding has to be sorted, numbers have to be sorted, because to deliver a safe and legal election is going to be challenging. It's one of the biggest risks that we see at the moment. And when you do get the updated risk register, it's glowing because it's a very short time. I would be planning now if we were doing a usual county election. This isn't a usual county election. It's very complicated. We're setting up 4 brand new unitary authorities with all of the boundary work and everything that needs to sit behind that. So I can't emphasise enough that time is running out, and in order to be safe and legal, there's a number of things we have to do to get us there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very much. And Councillor Raleigh, you've drawn attention to a very important point. This time frame may impact as DCC's ability to deliver a safe and legal transition. It is a very, very quick time frame. Thank you for illustrating that. Next on my list, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask officers about 11.4, which says that there is a risk that some communities may be split between two new unitary councils, including areas such as Totnes and Teignmouth, and this should be clearly identified in any response to government. Can you tell me, please, which communities?
So specifically on those towns in Totnes, the far western part actually sits in the parish of Bury Pomeroy, and that parish will be within the Torbay Council, Torbay and South Devon Council area. In the case of Teignmouth, the very northern part of Teignmouth sits in the parish of Holcombe, and Holcombe transfers to Exeter. So those are the two we've specifically identified, Councillor Bailey.
So I'd like to draw your attention to Ottery St Mary and West Hill, because they are very closely linked. They are being split. The Boundary Commission reviewed the split between, as part of the review of parliamentary constituencies in 2023, and following representations from myself and other people, determined that they should be kept together. Yet they've been split up under this proposal, and it's not recognised in this report. So there's very close community links between West Hill and Ottery. There's schools, doctors, libraries, all the services. So I'm really concerned about the proposed split, and I'm also concerned that it's not identified in the report. And it also concerns me that if my community, which is being split, is not identified in the report, that there may be other ones across the county council that also may be similarly split. So I'd like to know, please, will you be including Ottery St Mary and West Hill? Will you identify in your response to government? And will you be seeking the comment of the Boundary Commission? Thank you.
Thank you to Councillor Bailey. And it's an important point you raise, absolutely. And we'll throw over to the officers in a moment. We could spend all day looking at different communities, so I really do appreciate you advocating for yours. It is a report that is based on very little information from government, very little the direction. We've been told what we have to do and told to get on with it. So I very much appreciate it. I'm sure you can give me the realities of it now, though.
I think what the point you've raised is a really good one, Councillor Bailey. We've highlighted two communities which stand out to me like sore thumbs. There are a number of other ones though where, and I'm looking possibly at the person who sat next to you as well when I'm answering this one, that there are some boundaries where the synergy of the communities who are surrounding, let's say, Crediton, are being separated in their communities as well. We picked up on Ottery and West Hill, as I know the history of that well, and there are a number of other ones which I could also refer to. You know, the Clists are being split up. You know, there are some real issues there with some of the communities. We highlighted those specifically because literally people who live in Totnes town are going to be split into two communities, but there are a number of other ones, and I would just ask if councillors are aware of others that we can include them in our response on concerns that are being raised. But yes, we picked up on a number. And I'm just trying to think if there's anybody here from Teambridge in the room, apologies, but there are a few in the Teambridge area where the natural alignment, I mean, I think Dawlish and Teignmouth are the two we would really say they work incredibly closely together, and yet they're being split into two new unitary authorities. So that boundary around that area, generally, we have some concerns over about the community, where the community looks for services and where the unitary boundaries lie.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that response. Thank you, because it's very divisive. It's very divisive what the government are doing, and we've got it where I live, where people, you know, from one authority are going to have to come into a different authority and then back out to another authority, and it just doesn't make sense. So I appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Point of order, Chair.
And point of order on my right.
Just to correct the record, and I'm sure the Deputy Chief Executive would want me to do so, Bury Pomeroy lies to the, the Bury Pomeroy lies to the far east rather than the far west of Totnes.
Thank you very much for that point of clarification. Very well received. Thank you. The next on my list. Thank you. Councillor Stevens Neil.
Yeah, this might be irrelevant. I'm looking at the legal consideration. So have you been guidance on the contract? So you've got existing contracts, you've got procurement, you've got commercial risk, contract transfers. What have you, or how have you going to tackle these in your legal considerations? Have the government give you guidance? Because this could come with a cost Because if you change contracts, you could come with a penalty and adds more money on.
Thank you for that question. I'm looking for who would like to. Meg.
Could you specifically refer to the paragraph you're talking about, Councillor Steve?
There's not exactly a parrot. So legal considerations, I'm not a GDP expert, but it said to transfer data. But I know that you've got procurement, you've got existing contracts, commercial risks. Have you been given under the legal consideration any direction how to sort this contracts out? Sorry, my section, yeah.
Just on the microphone on that one, sorry, Councillor Mitchell. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Mayor Maria.
So information governance is absolutely part of the overarching Pan Devon programme and indeed the County Council's programme, and it sits within the data work streams that we are working on. So GDPR and ownership of data, data retention, etc., are all absolutely key considerations. Sorry, I couldn't quite find quick enough where you were referring to, so I'm not sure if I've answered the actual question.
Thank you. Maria.
I'm not sure we're on the right page, but not a problem anyway. So legal considerations are being captured as part of the overall risk assessment in every one of the projects. GDPR is part of it. South contracts is a separate work stream that sits along contracts and procurement. And we're capturing the legal considerations as part of that process. Some of the contracts will be really easy, some will go over, some are more complicated, and it's a bit of a case by case on each contract. But yes, we're on top of them. Yes, they'll be logged on the risk register, and you'll be able to see what we're doing on each of those work streams, if that gives you some assurance.
Thank you.
I think that's what you're asking. But if I haven't answered, please come back.
Thank you for that, Maria. And yeah, absolutely. As we discussed in the previous agenda item, we will be regularly receiving those sort of assurances and updates as we go. Just bringing your attention back to the warding paper we're looking at. We're discussing to try and get some recommendations together to put to Cabinet to inform a local agreement about warding. But I very much do appreciate your point, because we do need to consider these things. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I'm referring to well, I've got two questions actually. I'm referring first of all to paragraph 10.5 about the equality impact assessment or proportionate equality analysis related to these interim warding decisions. How is that going to be possible to do anything meaningful? But equally, I recognise the importance, as we've already been discussing about the democratic issues, the importance of having an impact assessment on the most vulnerable and in understanding the impact of ward changes on those. So that's my first question. How is that going to be done? And my second question is just broader around, are there any other, because obviously none of us probably know about warding arrangements very much as councillors, are there any other, because it mentions it in 11.1, it refers to other risks, legal, democratic, electoral and reputational. Are there any others that we haven't covered or we're not likely to know about as councillors? Thank you.
So very good point on the equality impact assessment. As part of the proposals, when we submitted replies to each of the proposals, we did a very detailed equality impact assessment on every one of the proposals and identified deficits and issues, and we're very, very detailed as part of that process. As we get further down, and we've got about a week, once we've got the next round of information on what the wards are going to look like or proposed to look like, we will do a further equality impact assessment, appreciating, yes, timescales don't particularly help us. We have got some base to go from, just because we did it as part of the whole proposal when we looked at each of the proposals that were put forward. So I think it's probably about as much assurance as I can give you, but we did an awful lot of work on it several months ago. So we'll update that, and we'll then look how the wards are looking as it changes. Is there anything else we need to identify? We already know the risk groups in the majority of those areas because we've identified them. So far as risk management, I think we've identified what we know at the moment. There are some huge risks around the elections and things that we need to put in place to make sure we are delivering them safe and legal, that we're complying with what we need to comply with, and that our returning officers are have the maximum protection so that they can deliver a safe and legal election. And that's just what we've identified there. I think that's probably all I can say at the moment. We're continuing to go through. And as Meg alluded, literally this week, we've identified a whole sea of additional risks that are going into that register. We will update those regular and bring them back to you. But I kind of can't tell you what we don't know at the moment. This is just what we know now and what I've identified now.
Thank you very much. Follow up, Councillor Wilson.
Just a brief one. If there was a serious equality, deficit, for example, would that actually, or could we have confidence that that would actually, alter or influence awarding decisions so that it didn't impact residents negatively? Will there be time to obviously do that?
So today we have put to government all of our equality impact assessments and continue to do that with them. So all we could do is continue doing that. Okay. That's what I would say. We would submit, of course we would, and then it's not ultimately our decision.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm gather that sentiment is being captured to my left. Thank you. Councillor Hayward, you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. I'm seeking your forbearance. I'm going to have to leave in about 15 minutes because there's an incident back in Axminster I need to attend to. But it's really following on from Councillor Bailey's point about West Hill. Yeah, the dividing West Hill from Ottery. But just on the warding, you've got Newton Poppleford to the south. Well, Newton Poppleford and West Hill are conjoined by one road, and essentially it comes back to Councillor Arnott's point. They're just cherry picking the bits. It goes in and out. There's no logic to it. And Councillor Wilson's raised a valid issue that's been raised by one of my colleagues at the district about impact assessment and equality. If you don't drive a car, you may as well not be a councillor in this new authority unless you happen to be in one of the urban centres, because you will not be able to get to meetings. It's impossible.
Just on that, we do have arrangements, I think, keeping this on the warding arrangements.
Yeah.
As a council, we are very accessible in terms of our online colleagues. I can see a few in front of me here. But no, I take your point. But if I could just redirect you back to the report.
Indeed, Chair.
Thank you.
But of course, just on that point, procedurally, none of those councillors can vote. That's the difference. You could have every councillor here on that screen. Wonderful, it's accessible. We can have a debate. You can't vote on it because the law doesn't allow it.
I take your point entirely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that might be for the governance working group.
I think so. But it's just essentially echoing what's been said. And I'll start packing up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any hands coming off my left here. Excellent. Councillors, further questions? Councillor Mitchell.
Something you said, Chair. No, it's just a point you made. When we're talking about warding boundaries.
Sorry, I can't quite hear you. Apologies.
When we're discussing warding boundaries, we're saying county, district or parish. Quite clearly, in some urban areas, it is more suitable to use district boundaries. I'll just use the illustration of the small city of Exeter, which has 13 district council wards within each, 13 with 3 members, which is 39. The new council has 86 members, so proportionately Exeter will have somewhere around that same number in the new authority. Whereas if you used county council boundaries, there are 9 county councils, and I expect James will tell me that's 4 point something. I don't know. We're back to the question I said about multi-member wards. So I'm somewhat concerned whether are we working on the premise that we start with district council boundaries wherever possible, or you start with county council boundaries wherever possible and work down, or is it that each of the UAs could have a mixture of some using, for certain areas, using district wards, and in certain parts of the area using county wards and making the county wards multi-member?
Thank you for your question, Maria.
So it's a mix. It's not starting from any would be the answer. It's how does it get the most sensible end result. So no, it's not starting as being the district, it's not starting as being the parish, and it's not starting as being county. So it's literally what can make work to the numbers, how can you work within those building blocks, and it could be a mix. So the new unitary authorities could be using a mix of district, city, parish and county. It's whatever can make work within the numbers effectively. So no, the building blocks are just work to one of those or all of those, or a mix. And I suspect it's a mix that we're going to come out with.
Wonderful, thank you. follow-up, councillor? Happy? Maybe the wrong word.
What comes out in the mix?
Wonderful. I'm not seeing any further hands. So I'd like us to move on to the recommendation. My wonderful scrutiny team on my left, though, have asked for 10 minutes to collate the essence of the conversation if we want to see something on the screen. How do we feel about that committee? I'm seeing some nods. 10 minutes just so we can get something for you to read. Yeah. Excellent. I make the time 12:49. Could I have you all back, please, at 12:59? Thank you. Members, officers, it is 12:59. Members, thank you for your patience on that, and thank you for that excellent discussion. The scrutiny team are going to put forward, so I put on the screen, again, I would like to avoid live editing it, but it'll go on the screen for your leisure, and I'd like us in a moment, please, to either vote on whether we accept these or any changes before we do so. Here it comes, I'm playing for time now. I haven't got many jokes, here we go. Let me know, please, if you can't read that from where you are. I'll give you a few moments just to read it. Again, any changes, just the spirit of the change rather than the exact changes, please. Councillor Mitchell.
One point I want to raise, I think came out of the debate, or I raised it. I think we welcome the position that Devon County Council was having an all members briefing prior to the Cabinet discussing this matter, because I think we ought to flag that up, because I'd be interested to see what our district council colleagues are doing, because that's something where all members can be involved in or could participate, make comment before a decision is made by Cabinet to send on Devon County Council's recommendations. So I think that should be noted.
Thank you very much. And following on conversation I had with Meg a moment ago, putting out requests to members in the future about these concerns. Did you want to speak on that at all?
Just picking up really on the comments that Councillor Bailey made, as officers, we've obviously been looking at the implications for where some of the unitary boundaries have been drawn on communities. And it was really to maybe go out to members to highlight to us officers any particular concerns they have in their divisions as to where the unitary boundaries are. I would emphasise that this cannot influence the warding arrangements because we're stuck to the current boundaries. However, I think it would be imperative for us to identify those issues, particularly that you have concerns over, you know, the communities well that you serve. We as officers have been able to pick out on a number of parishes which may feel as if they're on the wrong side of a line, but just maybe to go out to all members asking for any feedback that they can give us on community severance.
That's great. Thank you very much. Members, you've had a moment to read. Can I any further comments or questions, issues before I put it to the vote? Wonderful. I need someone, please, to propose. I'm happy to propose this one, actually, because I haven't done that yet today. So I'm going to propose, please, that we accept these or a slightly edited version of these as our recommendation from our conversation today. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you. And can I have all those in favour of accepting these recommendations, please? And all those against? And any abstentions? Wonderful. Thank you very much. Therefore, I think that is carried. Excellent. Just double checking. That brings us to the end of agenda item 6. Date of next meeting is what I'd normally talk about at this point. We don't yet have one in the diary due to everything changing very, very quickly. I will give you as much warning as I possibly can. It might be called a relatively short notice if something major changes that we need to draw attention to. I'm aiming for approximately 5 of these meetings a year, roughly. Slightly more than quarterly. Excellent. Well, if there's no further questions, comments, I'll draw the meeting to a close at 13:03. Thank you very much.